The Fall of the Trojan War, a tale of betrayal, gods, and heroes. The Trojan War, one of the most famous conflicts in Greek mythology, was fought between the city of Troy and the Greek states. It all began when Paris, a Trojan prince, abducted Helen, the queen of Sparta, igniting a war that would last for 10 long years. But the end of the war came not through force, but through cunning and deceit, a story that has echoed through the ages. The Siege of Troy. The Greeks had laid siege to Troy for nearly a decade, but despite their vast numbers and superior weapons, the walls of Troy stood strong. The Trojans were brave and determined, led by their prince Hector, who was a mighty warrior and the defender of Troy. On the Greek side, the great Achilles was the hero, but he had withdrawn from the battle after a quarrel with Agamemnon, the Greek king, over a captive woman. Achilles' absence was a major blow to the Greeks, as his strength had been unmatched on the battlefield. But the Greeks knew they could not win without Achilles, and so they devised a plan to get him back into the fight. Achilles' closest friend, Patroclus, disguised himself in Achilles' armor and led the Greek forces into battle. Seeing Patroclus in Achilles' armor, the Trojans feared the return of the great hero. But Hector, determined to protect his city, met Patroclus on the battlefield and killed him, believing him to be Achilles. When Achilles learned of Patroclus's death, his grief turned to rage. He returned to the battlefield, his fury driving him to seek vengeance against Hector. In a dramatic duel, Achilles and Hector faced each other, and despite Hector's courage, Achilles killed him. Achilles desecrated Hector's body, dragging it around Troy behind his chariot. The Trojans, led by Hector's father, King Priam, pleaded for the return of his body, and in a rare moment of mercy, Achilles agreed to return it, allowing the Trojans to mourn. The gods' involvement. Throughout the war, the gods had intervened in mortal affairs. The goddess Athena supported the Greeks, while the goddess Aphrodite and the god Apollo favored the Trojans. These divine beings often shaped the course of battles, offering blessings or sending omens to sway the outcome of events. One of the most significant divine interventions occurred when the goddess Hera, who hated the Trojans, stirred up the Greek forces for a final assault on Troy. But it wasn't just divine strength or mortal bravery that would lead to Troy's downfall. It would be the cunning of the Greeks that would break the deadlock. The Trojan horse, the final trick. As the war dragged on, the Greeks realized they could not break Troy through force alone. They needed a new strategy. The cleverest of the Greek leaders, Odysseus, came up with a plan that would be remembered for centuries: the Trojan horse. The Greeks pretended to give up the war. They built a massive wooden horse, hollowed out to hold a group of their best warriors, including Odysseus. They left the horse at the gates of Troy and sailed away, pretending to retreat. The Trojans, seeing this, believed the Greeks had given up and left. However, the priest Laocoon and others warned the Trojans not to bring the horse into the city, but the gods, wanting Troy to fall, sent serpents to silence him. The Trojans, believing the gods were on their side, dragged the horse into the city as a victory trophy. That night, while the Trojans slept, the Greek warriors hidden inside the horse emerged. They opened the gates of Troy to allow the rest of the Greek army, who had secretly returned under cover of night, to enter the city. The Greeks, now inside the walls, began to slaughter the Trojans. The fall of Troy. The Trojans fought valiantly, but the Greeks had the element of surprise and the gods had turned their favor toward them. Priam, the aged king of Troy, tried to defend his city, but it was too late. In the chaos, his palace was burned, and the once proud city of Troy was consumed by flames. The Greeks showed no mercy, and the city was sacked. Many of the Trojan leaders, including King Priam and his sons, were killed. Priam's youngest son, the child Astyanax, was thrown from the walls of Troy to prevent him from growing up to seek revenge. The once great city, which had stood firm for so long, was now in ruins, and the Greeks, though victorious, had paid a high price. They had lost heroes, made enemies of the gods, and earned the eternal hatred of the surviving Trojans, who would forever curse their name. The fall of Troy marked the end of the war, but it was not the end of the story. The Greeks' return journey would be fraught with challenges as they faced divine retribution for their actions during the war. The most famous of these tales is that of Odysseus, whose journey home to Ithaca after the fall of Troy took 10 more years and was filled with monstrous creatures, gods, and temptations. As for Troy, its fall became a symbol of the transience of great empires. It stood as a lesson in both the power of cunning and the destructive force of war. And the story of the Trojan War, with its gods, heroes, and treachery, has lived on in literature and art for millennia, reminding humanity of the complex interplay between fate, honor, and the desires of the gods. Like this video. It really helps us out. Subscribe to the channel for more great content. Share this video with your friends and family to help us grow. Check out our other videos. We will create plenty exciting content just for you.